Good morning, everyone. Today I want to take some time to speak to you about your Lord and Savior, the one jab. One jabs are extremely important strategic and generic tools in this game. They exist across most of the cast, but I think that they are criminally misunderstood and underused by most new players. It seems to be the case that the one jab seeps into the repertoire of a Tekken player quite late in life, and that's nobody's fault. It's not immediately obvious why they are so good if you're not very familiar with the mechanics of this game. Namco are famously very stingy with their frame data. They're not going to give you a manual like in Soul Calibur where they go, this move is for doing this and so on. But I'm going to go ahead and tell you right now that your one jab actually has some of the most broken properties of any attack in the game. It is absolutely insane, and if you compare it to other fast pokes, it is just going to destroy all of them with its amazing properties. The only reason people aren't upset about the one jab and calling it busted and so on is because almost everybody has access to a version of it, so that balances it out. But let's start by think about your favorite character, your main character, and go to a website where you can see the frame data of your one jab if you're not already very familiar with it. If you are one of those players who doesn't like to memorize a lot of numbers and frame data, I guess I can respect that, but just for the sake of making this video useful, maybe you could humor me and check that out. So what you'll probably find is that your one jab, just your standing one, has something like, first of all, it's going to impact at 10 frames, meaning that it is probably the fastest attack you have in your entire arsenal, which is very important. When you're just going to poke at your opponent and try and open something up, the fact that you have an attack that is so much faster than everything else is significant. It's going to make it better for interrupting stuff, it makes it a lot safer, it makes it less likely to get counter hit and so on. I shouldn't have to explain that it's good for an attack to be fast, obviously. But one jabs are the fastest stuff you have, and then you'll notice that despite that the frame data is absolutely, excuse me, fantastic, you'll probably see that you have something like +8 of frame advantage on hit, which is obviously massive. It's really big. It's something that you would be very happy to get off of any poking attack. +8 is huge. It means that when you connect with a normal one jab, it is completely your turn to do the next attack as well, and your opponent is more or less in a mix-up situation. You can lock them down pretty well at +8. So if I hit with Miguel here, I can go straight into a low poke. I can mix that with a mid like a down forward one. It is my turn to party, and that's very important because it means it's easy to start your offense and open up your offense with the one jab. So it's very good for that. Not only defensively to open up stuff, but also very good for just attacking them on the opponent, looking for hits and opening up offense. The plot thickens, however, and things get even more interesting when you realize that even though you have speed and massive advantage on hit, one jabs are also usually going to give you plus frames on block, which is crazy. If we make Claudio block here, if you look at normal poking attacks in this game, if they are fast and give you good advantage on hit, then they're definitely not going to give you advantage on block. That is extremely rare. Usually you look at very slow, heavy startup moves like this back 3 here to get plus frames on block. Plus frames on block moves are typically some of the most powerful moves that you have with your character, and so the fact that this quick little poke has it is kind of crazy if you didn't know about it. It gives you 1 frame of advantage typically, which is not big, but it's still very interesting to note that when you do a one jab, whether you get hit or get blocked, you are at advantage, and it is a good choice to keep on attacking. So it's almost never a bad idea to do a one jab, and that's why you see so many good players opening up, as we say, their offense with this, because no matter what happens, if they're going to do an attack and then another attack, the one jab is just going to make that next attack a lot faster on hit and block, and it's really cool. The only thing you have to keep in mind defensively, the only risk that you take when applying a lot of one jabs, is that they are typically high, which means that they can be ducked and launched. That's important. Because they're so fast, there's no way you're going to get reacted to, but you can still get read and predicted. And one jabs are moves that typically tend to come out in patterns. People develop habits when it comes to their one jab. So you'll see people do one jab, down forward one. Very typical sort of pattern. And then if your opponent is awake and on their toes, they see you do one jab, down forward one. Next time you do a one jab, they might just randomly duck because they know that you want to do that second one jab and a down forward one, and you can go for a ride. You're going to get launched. So when you're applying them, apply them a lot, but make sure that you're trying to stay pretty random with the attacks that precede and come after them, so that it doesn't become too easy for your opponent to duck you. So the one jab, an extremely important tool for interrupting your opponent, but also for creating offense and taking your turn. The next thing I'm going to talk about, however, is a sort of hidden magical mechanic that, if you didn't know about it, might actually annoy you a little bit. It's not written or explained anywhere else, so if nobody tells you, you might play Tekken for a long time without realizing that there is actually a hidden way to make your one jab have extended range in this game. This is something that old school players talked about a lot back in the day. I haven't seen a lot of discussion about it in Tekken 7, but I did a lot of testing yesterday, and as far as I can tell, it's still here and it still works. So the first thing you need to consider is whether or not your character has a forward 1 move, an attack that has the notation forward 1. Miguel doesn't, so I can use him for this example. In fact, none of the characters I play do. If you do have a forward 1 with your character, you can't do this, so I'm very sorry. But what you're going to do is, just instead of doing your normal one jab, you're going to press forward and 1 together. So you're going to use the notation forward 1, and that is going to create a little bit of extra range on your one jab, and it's not going to change its properties really apart from that. So it's just a way to get free range on a one jab. You can think of it as kind of comparable to how you have, your generic throw, and then you can do a forward throw, and your character's going to take an instep before the throw and get better range. To demonstrate that this is true, what I did yesterday is I went on all my characters that don't have a forward 1 and have a generic one jab, which is basically all of them, and I matched them up against different opponents to try and test the hitboxes here at the start of the round. And I found that Miguel Claudio is a pretty good combination here, because if I reset the positioning, you need to know that Miguel walks back and forward, as you can see in his standard stance when he's just standing there, and that is important. That actually affects the range of his moves. In Tekken, we don't have hitboxes, we have very sophisticated 3D models that dictate what range and where a character actually is in the game. And so you need to be aware of that when you're testing this. But if I just reset the positioning so I'm back to the default stance for both characters like that, and I do a one jab right here, you can see that it's not going to reach Claudio, right? It's not going to reach if I just reset and press the one jab here as fast as I can. But if I change this notation right now and I start pressing forward and 1 together, so I'm going to do that now. Let's turn off the stand guard and try this again. So again, without the forward, and now with the forward input, you can see that the one jab actually starts connecting at this range. It was difficult enough to test this that I have to say that the difference in range that you get is definitely minuscule. I mean, it is so small that it's like equivalent to you see the tiny movements of like Claudio's shoulder when he's breathing in and out. It's similar to something like that. We're talking about pixels here, but I found that if you do this generic example of Miguel Claudio at the beginning of the round, you can actually notice a difference. Another way you can do it is you can go to a stage that has something very easy to see on the floor. For example, the church stage, Claudio stage, has that big golden flower in the middle, and that means that you can look at where your character's feet are landing after the jab, with forward and without forward, and compare them, and you can notice that there is sometimes a very slight difference. But I just thought I'd throw this in here in my discussion about one jabs, because it is another weird little Tekken thing, one of those hidden mechanics that they're just not going to tell you about, which can be annoying, but it's just the way this game is. There are so many things, you can play this game for years without really understanding the mechanics of a proper check-in, for example, and stuff like that. But that's just a quick little video on your best pal and one of your best pokes by far, the generic one jab. I hope it was interesting and taught you something. If you're already aware of this, obviously, if you're a Tekken veteran, it might not have opened your eyes to new possibilities. But if you didn't, and if you aren't using one jabs in your standard offense a lot already, then I think starting to incorporate them more will help you a lot in your offense. So definitely try it out. Thank you so much for watching the video. I hope you liked it, and I'll see you guys again very soon. Bye bye for now.